Today, we have one main aim, and that is to solve man's greatest problem: how to tell when the steak is done. When it comes right down to it, knowing when a steak is cooked or done is probably the single most important factor there is to cooking a steak perfectly. Overcook it and you'll end up with a piece of leather. Undercook it and rare becomes raw. There are quite a few ways to tell when a steak is cooked, and today I'm going to demonstrate them. Before we get started though, I want to tell you something which, as a steak chef, you'll do really well to remember. Much of what I teach is based on science, and if you follow the techniques and timings, you're going to get very close to cooking steak perfectly. The thing is though, and I've learnt this over the years, there are lots of variables you just can't control, and these can dramatically influence the overall outcome. For instance, if it's a really hot summer's day, the steaks are going to cook quicker than if it's a cold winter's day. These are simply things you need to take into account and manage. As I've said over and over, cooking the perfect steak is as much an art as it is a science. Okay, so the first techniques I want to discuss is the 3 big T's, and that is thickness, temperature and timing. If you know the thickness of the steak, say 1 inch, and you measure the temperature of the grill surface, then it's simple to work out the cooking time. The Perfect Steak Grill Guide gives you those timings, and if you stick to them, you're going to have close to perfect steaks every time. I say close because, again, cooking steaks isn't strictly a science. Not every steak is exactly 1 inch, and not every part of the grill surface is exactly 200 degrees. Having said that, the 3 big T's is a very solid platform to work from when it comes to cooking your perfect signature steak. If you know the thickness and you manage the temperature, then the timing takes care of itself. Another excellent way to tell if the steak is cooked to your liking is to use a thermometer or thermoprobe. I used to be against thermometers. I thought they were clumsy and I didn't like probing the meat and letting the juices escape. That was, however, until I discovered this, the Thermapen. I've heard it said that this is the Ferrari of cooking thermometers, and I totally agree. It reads the internal temperature of meat accurately within a couple of seconds, and that allows you to quickly determine its level of doneness. Let's say you're wanting to cook your steaks to medium rare. Well, we know from our chart that medium rare is approximately 60 degrees. So when we're getting close to time, we use our Thermapen to double check to get that extra level of accuracy. This is a professional chef's tool. It's also a secret weapon for accurately managing and measuring the doneness of meat. If you're serious about cooking steaks perfectly, then you really should have one of these in your perfect steak toolkit. Another method which I've developed and I've found surprisingly accurate is what I call the Bananarama method. Kind of after this band who I thought were pretty cool when I was growing up, but also because you literally take a section of banana and this becomes our visual doneness gauge. What you do is you take 2 slices of ripe banana, about the same thickness as the steaks you're cooking. Give the ends a light brush with your grapeseed oil and put the first slice of banana on the grill alongside the steak. You watch as the dark line progresses up the banana, and this happens at a surprisingly consistent rate to the cooking of the steak. It's just that you can't see inside the steak. When the banana line gets up to the place where you want the steak cooked through to, turn the steak and pop the second slice of banana on the grill. If you're a medium rare lover like me, then your aim is to cook each piece of banana until the black line is 1/3 of the way up. You can see here as we slice our steak, our banana has given us a beautiful medium rare steak, exactly what we were aiming for. Granted, using a slice of banana as a doneness meter is a bit unusual, and I acknowledge it isn't perfect, but combined with a healthy dose of good judgment, it's an inexpensive and useful tool. And let's face it, It's eons ahead of what most people do, which is basically guess. To finish this section, there are a couple of other commonly used methods to test the doneness of a steak that I'd like to just comment on. The first one is the bounciness test, and you've probably seen this used before.
You take your index finger and push it to your thumb, and then you touch that fleshy part of your thumb. This is meant to signify medium rare. You work through medium, medium well, and well done. If you want to use this method, by all means, go ahead, and over time, you'll probably get quite good at it. I think it's an important technique you need to know, and it certainly comes in handy if you don't have your tools or timing charts with you. But as a doneness meter, I find it's a bit of a blunt instrument. It kind of reminds me of kicking the tyres on a car to tell if the engine is in good order or not. The last method I want to talk about is the cut and see method. This I don't recommend. Firstly, because it just looks so amateurish. It really shows that you don't know anything about steak timings or techniques. But more importantly, cutting into the steak whilst it's cooking literally wounds the meat and allows the juice, which is under pressure, to seep out. And of course, that is going to make the meat dry. So, that's my overview of doneness techniques. I suggest you experiment a bit and just see which one works best for you. For me, it's a combination of the 3 big T's whilst using my Thermapen to double check that everything is exactly where it needs to be. So now, it's over to you. I know you can do it.